Hi, this is Jeff Bishop, and this is the Internet History class. I wanted to talk a little bit about Apple Computer, really, because I remember a lot of that was going on. I remember that whenever I was in middle school, that was the first computer that we had. It was a green screen. I mean, nothing you might even recognize as a computer nowadays. But the only thing we'd have before that time was a Wang computer that took up a whole room. and it used punch cards, but this was very different. This was a computer that let us actually, work at a personal workstation. And I remember, there wasn't a whole lot it could do. It had I think a flight simulator program that was very basic. As I said, it had a green screen. Mostly, you just had to know how to do commands. If you didn't know some basic parameters of the language, the computer language, you couldn't really do a whole lot with it. But, we didn't know any different. It was very exciting to us. It's the first time we'd ever seen a computer up close, and we were allowed to actually use and touch one. Not long after that, there was a new thing that I guess it was back in the early 80s. They launched Apple. Steve Jobs launched the Macintosh. It was the Apple Macintosh, and this was something just unlike anything I'd ever seen. I mean, it had a graphical interface instead of just, a bunch of code and a bunch of words on a green screen. It was actually, it was a lot like what we think of as Windows today. I don't think the first Mac was in color. It was black and white, but it was still very exciting. It actually had a mouse. We'd never seen a mouse before. All we'd ever had was a keyboard. We never had seen anything like a mouse. And so to have, a mouse and a graphic interface was just it was just a very exciting thing. I remember the first we ever heard of the Macintosh, there was a Super Bowl ad that came on, and they were riffing on 1984, the George Orwell book, and it was a very just exciting thing at the time. Everybody was kind of pumped up about it. I guess that was the first sort of Apple event that Steve Jobs presided over that was of a major impact culturally. It's the first time we ever that Apple entered, I think, mainstream consciousness. And wasn't too long after that though that Steve Jobs was actually fired from his own company, the company he had started in his garage, basically with Steve Wozniak. He was fired from his own company. He said at the time, actually, that it was kind of a relief because he had not been getting along with some of the board members, and he was now free to pursue other things. And he did. He started up another company called Next Computers, which was very successful. And he also started, he joined Pixar, became one of the leaders of the Pixar movie company, and headed up such, I'm sure all of you remember from your childhood, all the classics like Toy Story, Toy Story 2, Monsters Incorporated. I mean, he was there for all that, The Incredibles. It was just a big success. Everything he touched seemed to turn to gold, like Midas, and he had that Midas touch. And unfortunately, whenever he left Apple, they floundered. Their stock price tanked. They came out with just these inane products. Like they had this online virtual world that just totally flopped. I remember buying a Performa computer in 1995, and I always regretted it. It wound up burning up in flames, literally. I lost all my data, and they decided to go with a PowerPC chip that was not supported in the marketplace. It became sort of a niche product. People stopped writing software for Macs. You couldn't find any software anywhere for your computer. If you had a Mac, you couldn't even find a place to buy a Mac or any Apple products. They were on the verge of extinction and irrelevance and bankruptcy. And it was really doubtful that Apple would continue to exist. This all changed whenever they decided to buy Steve Jobs' company Next for about $500 million. And so they reacquired their old CEO, and he became the CEO of the company again. And from that point onward, it was just steady climb. I mean, he introduced the iMac, which was sort of he basically did away with all the old ideas that they had been experimenting with. Like they had experimented with doing with clones of their computers, with letting other companies come in and make Apple clones. And he said that they weren't going to allow that anymore because basically they had let go of other quality control, and their products just didn't have the type of quality that Apple consumers had come to expect. He was always looking not only for quality control, but also, at the next thing, whatever was the next thing on the marketplace. He always had his eye on the future. And so, he introduced like I said, the iMac, which was, colorful and fun and different and powerful and new. And I remember all my friends being very excited about that when that came out. And then, of course, the iPod, which totally revolutionized the music industry. Instead of having to fumble with all these CDs and tapes in your car, you could have your entire music collection as MP3s on this little thing you put in your pocket, which was revolutionary. I mean, it just, of course, totally destroyed the music industry as we knew it, but it was just, it was again, just unlike anything anybody had ever dreamt of or seen. And then, of course, not long after that, I had the iPhone and the iPad and just, plethora of products. And he basically single-handedly saved the company. It managed to save, the stock price went back up, and the company, the brand now is like one of the most successful brands in the world. The company is one of the most successful companies in the world, most profitable companies. And now Steve Jobs is gone, of course, and the big question is, can the company continue to survive without Jobs at the helm? Will they continue to think different, or will they go like they did in the mid to late 90s and start to founder again and start to lose their way? I guess only time will tell. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Thanks a lot.